So cloud technology, tennis, and TGfU. So COVID-19 induced constraints-led approach. And, didn't start off very well. There we go, moving ball. That was my cool bit to start. And so I'm presenting on teaching when I had to teach online, and it was tennis, and it was vital for some students to finish their program to take a activity class. But due to COVID-19, there was no face-to-face. So everything had to be done online. So to do that, I had two courses, one in the fall and one in the winter term, that basically over 12 weeks with 24 hours of contact was meant to be happening. So I changed that into a revised version that worked on the fact that they could only meet me online for 8 hours and then did the other 16 hours themselves. But they had to work within their own social bubble. They couldn't connect with anybody else. This was the restrictions that we were under. And also that they were set tasks that they then had to figure through, and part of it was a court sizes, red ball transition, using the things that the ITF have now suggested and Tennis Canada. The other part of the class was vital is that it was a mastery level. So everybody contracted for a B+ grade. If they wanted to get an A range, as some did, they would put in a proposal. But I gamified, so my assessment got points, and their points went towards their team, and the team at the end would win a prize. So the online teaching, here we are. This is my class. I would teach, they would try to figure it out from their homes in different parts. I would use video. And as I was explaining things, I would use Google Classroom as an online system for them to get at the work and submit the work. At the same time as that was going on, I created an online portfolio for the whole class where you can see the gamification process and all the materials were there. And particularly in those materials was Tennis Canada's resources for teaching coaches how to coach tennis. I adapted them so they could teach themselves how to play tennis. A lot of them were complete beginners. And all the sessions were then online that they could access at any time after I'd done a presentation. I explained to them about the constraints-led approach and that they would learn by creating games that would structure their environment for them to learn. And so they then did representation games, exaggeration games, adaptation games based on an activity from Tennis Canada. So they had to create the game that the activity would then address. With that, they would then go home, find a place to do it. They would fill in this template I created for them. My coach from Tennis Canada would demonstrate the fundamental. They would create their game based on the activity they selected. And this game then would be a practice based on this activity, and then we return back to the game and reflect on their improvement. As they developed that, they got very good at using the video. They started analyzing themselves continuously as they were progressing. And I would give them feedback on every submission they made of the 8 weeks that they did the program, the course, and then they reflect on their returning to game as they're starting to apply their tactical concepts of space, time, risk, and force that they started to appreciate made the game work. And at the end, they created their own portfolio and reflected on how they improved over basically the 10 weeks that I had made the course work in. So that was really the online process. And this is what they ended up doing. They would play because it was freaking wet. There was snow melting. They adapted. Wherever they were fine places. And you can see they were actually interrogating in their videos their own play as they were going through. Some had to go indoors. This guy was in Calgary playing with his dad, right? They would always work where they could make it happen for them. They adjusted and made the game happen. And all the elements of my course were coming out and they would evidence to me at the end, ready for their portfolio. So at the end, we looked at this and the students was the play practice model and the modification by adaptation was the critical element because it allowed them to play with anybody that he could actually access. This meant that they started playing with a social bubble that maybe had never played tennis before. They would pull them into their own learning. As one student said at the end when I surveyed them, I like this made us connect with our bubble and invite others to join activity. It was a good reason to connect and be active, participate in your own school learning. The constraints-led approach, the pay, practice, play from Tennis Canada, the contract grading, all promoted this learning and the capacity to teach themselves. The video analysis of their own play, planned in relation to a modified game, led to progress, never being on the court with a tennis coach. This really was a revelation to the students. They started to feel how much more they had developed themselves and they appreciated the system. At the end, I asked them, how did you think this worked? They all came up with some combination of 50-50, 60-40. Don't go back to just coach. I'd like this independence in my learning, but I also would like to be on the court with the coach. Boom, 5 minutes exactly.